there, welcome to the farm. I'm doing some fencing out here today, but I'm running out of fence posts. So I've got to head up north to my friend Shane's house where we're gonna pull some logs out of the forest using real horsepower. And then I'm inviting the whole crew back down to Eau Claire to the Paul Bunyan Museum for a real lumberjack lunch. Gather with us around the farm table. I'm your host, Inga Witcher.
Gather with us around the farm table.
A few years ago, I moved up to Wisconsin. I started an organic dairy farm at St. Isidore's Mead. That's when I discovered the abundance of Midwestern local food and small-scale farmers, growing everything from green zebra tomatoes to pasture pork. I'm taking a break from the cows, hitting the road, and seeing if I can't satisfy my epicurious appetite.
That's great.
This is amazing.
Around the Farm Table is funded in part by Wisconsin Farmers Union, Heartland Credit Union, and Friends of Wisconsin Public Television.
So I do what we call rotational grazing here at the Mead, and that means I move the cows every 12 hours. So I want to put them in small strips to graze so that they can harvest all their feed, spread manure, and then move on to another piece of ground so that that ground has a chance to regrow. And then 30 days later, 35 days later, I come back and I graze that piece of land again. In order to have a successful grazing operation, I need to make sure that I have hot electricity going around the farm. The cows will respect the fences when they're electric, but when they're not, they run off and do their own thing. So having a permanent fence that I'm building today is really important. My dairy farm here is certified organic, so I have different standards than a conventional farm. One of those means that I have to use untreated fence posts when I'm doing my permanent pastures. This is an untreated fence post, so I'm all good to go here. But I'm gonna leave this in the ground until I get my other fence posts and come on back out and finish this up, because I've gotta head into the barnyard. My breeder Brandon just showed up and we gotta breed some cows. Brandon's not just the guy that breeds my cows. He's really a part of this farm system. Farming is really about a community of people coming together and helping each other out. And Brandon is the guy that sits down with me to help me pick out different bulls to improve my genetics here with my herd and make myself more profitable by having those really nice cows. Let's go say hi to him. Brandon, how are you?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm really good. So I got this cow to breed, and I was
Okay.
just thinking about all the benefits of artificial insemination. I love the fact that I can get bulls from other countries and do these different things. What are some of the other benefits? Tell us about.
Well, first and foremost, we can improve a cow by correctively mating her. We can, if a cow needs help in production, or whether it be her amount of milk she's giving or her component level that she's giving, we can mate her to a bull correctively. We can fix her soundness of her feet and legs so that her offspring will be more sound or produce more of the product you want. We've got a biosecurity issue where we can source, genetics from anybody else. And not about bringing a bull on farm, like they did
if we're
years
bringing
and years ago.
bulls, if we're swapping bulls out on different people's farms, there's issues we can bring on disease from their farms,
Very
right?
much so. Very much so. And then in your case, where you're a seasonal herd, you're going to have a good portion of the year where you're not going to need the services of that bull on farm.
Sure.
And there's a carrying cost as far as feeding that bull all year. For him just standing around idle.
Yeah.
And of course, with the dairy bulls and especially Jerseys, we all know that, Jersey bulls can be dangerous.
Yeah.
And, from a safety standpoint, we need to, by using AI, we don't have those concerns.
Sure. I'm just wondering, you get to always come to my farm and see my cows, and I never get a chance to see yours. And I thought since last month I bought that locker beef from you, I was going to go pick some of it up, but I thought maybe first I could stop by your place and see where it was raised.
Well, sure. It's a nice day. I'm actually headed home now. I'd be happy to take you out and show you all the pastures, and you can kind of get an idea what I'm doing there.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go change my clothes, and then I'll meet you over there.
Sounds great.
Well, I've made it. I'm excited to be here because I also get to see Brandon's dad, Butch. 10 years ago, I started taking farm classes, and he was my teacher, so it's going to be nice to see everybody again. Hey, Hey, Butch, how are you doing today?
Great, good to see you.
Good to see you too. It's so nice to come visit you guys at your farm.
Well, we're glad to have you.
So tell me, this farm has been in your family for how many generations?
Well, I'm the third generation here. My son Brandon is the fourth generation. My grandfather purchased this farm in 1908. We are a century farm, and it's a long-term family operation.
That's nice. You don't see too many these days.
Well, I think this operation had to change a lot over the years. When my grandfather took over this farm, it had been in cash wheat until the point where it wouldn't raise wheat anymore,
Sure.
as many farms were around the turn of the century. He built the first dairy barn here, and he dairied until the late 30s. And my father took over, and he had sheep and poultry, and then began dairying again in the 50s into the 70s, and then since the 1970s, we've been pretty much a beef operation.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I'm going to go see the fourth generation of your farm. Is Brandon out in the field?
He's out in the field taking care of those cows.
Okay, well, good to see you, Butch.
It's nice seeing you.
I always get a little nervous around beef cows for some reason.
Oh,
I don't know.
they're not gonna. You don't gotta worry about these. They're just fine. Like we talked earlier, about not having a dairy bull around. There's a bull out here in this group of cows. You wouldn't even know he's here.
It makes me nervous.
Yeah, you don't even know he's. It's part of our operation. We're selling purebred breeding stock. We're selling show calves. We're selling some breeding bulls to other customers to breed both purebred cows and commercial cows for the commercial cow-calf man. And then of course, like the locker beef that you got from us, we do we do our own small feedlot with our own calves, and the Herefords are developed very well to a forage-based system as far as growing them. We do not grass fatten our cattle. We use grain to fatten our cattle with, but our cows are all bred for and maintained on a forage-based diet.
Now, I know we've had this conversation before with just what we do for a living. We know the end, how it's all going to end for these girls. What do you think? We talked about also, like, we have to have compassion for what we do as farmers. What do you think about that?
Oh, very much so. I mean, whether you're a dairy farmer or a beef farmer, you know what the ultimate end will be. You have to give them the absolute best care that you can with the time that they are with us. And we always like to kind of think big and talk big, that we don't get attached to things at time, but you have to.
Yeah.
To do a really good job, you have to be attached. And if you're not, then there may be some other issues. But it's you got to keep them properly fed, properly bedded, properly sheltered.
They get fed before you do.
Exactly, they do, and it's our livelihood. And the better care we take care of them, the better they take care of us.
Yeah. Well, this is great. I love being out here in the field, smelling the grass, and just seeing animals raised the way I think that animals should be raised, which is out eating grass and being in the fresh air.
Oh, and it's a nice time of year. Everything is lush here now, and it's a fun time of year. So.
Alrighty. Well, I gotta go start cooking. So I'm
you
gonna
go for it. I'm gonna
here.
get back and get through the rest of this cow herd and send them to the next pasture.
All right. I'll see you next time, Brandon.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's head up north and let's get to the logging, because that's going to be a fun adventure for all of us. Hey, Shane.
Hey, Inga, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Good. I'm glad you can make it today.
Yeah. Hey, well, I needed to order some fence posts.
Awesome.
So.
Well, we got plenty of those around. Absolutely.
Good, good. And any chance I can help you in the woods a little bit?
You know what? You're right on time. So we just have to do a little harnessing.
Okay.
And we're going to be heading out to the woods here just shortly. I got a widowmaker we're going to have to look after out there.
Sounds scary.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're going to check that out. And so a little harnessing, we're going to be in good shape. You want to stay and help harness?
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Want to start with brushing? You
Okay,
bet.
sure. I can
All
do
right.
that.
Thanks, Inga.
That was a little more intense than I thought it was going to be. I'm not sure if I want a glass of water or a glass of whiskey after that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the one thing about working in the woods is it's very unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
It's hence why one of the most dangerous jobs.
Uh-huh.
So you just never know. And dealing with a widowmaker, absolutely one of the most dangerous.
Tell us what a widowmaker is.
Widowmaker came from just that name. The men would work in the woods, and you get these trees crossed up in another tree, and you just never know. Very unpredictable. A lot of men lost their lives due to those trees.
My
So,
uncle lost his life that way.
isn't that
Yeah.
something incredible? It's a very sad thing, and it's probably one of the most dangerous parts about working in the woods. So, yeah, to take care of things like that are important, absolutely.
So logging with horses, it seems there seems to be a lot of different benefits to it. Just we hardly disturb the ground.
You know, that's probably the biggest part of horse logging in itself is just the low impact. You know, sometimes you may not get as much done. Everything in modern days is time, and time is money. So that's big processors, but it also disturbs the ground a very large amount of it. So by doing it with horses, very low impact. A lot of times you don't even know we were in a woods after we've done some logging with horses. So.
Sure. Now, why would somebody want to have this? Why would somebody want to hire somebody to come in and log with horses?
One of the biggest parts to that, Inga, would probably be the idea that as you see throughout the forest floor, there's tons of vegetation that's just coming. So a lot of times we do this in the winter months where the ground is dormant. So then we're not disturbing all the new and the young growth coming
Sure.
up. So very little damage to the forest floor, which is really what we're looking for with horses.
Sure. Now, do you see a lot more? Is there a lot of people like you out here doing these things?
You know, it starts a lot probably with a passion for horses. You really have to understand the animals. You have to be able to work with them. As you can see, there's 3 of us having to work at this, not just an operator. So having a team of horses that works good with you is important. There are getting to be more and more people getting back into the horse logging, just because we do understand the impact it has on the environment and so on and so forth that way. But
And I mean, it's kind of cool. I mean, it's neat to be out here in the woods and kind of doing something it's a throwback thing. I like doing things
a
that
day
way.
of working in the woods with horses is probably one of the most rewarding things I've done in my life. Hard work, yes, very
Sure.
much so. But at the end of the day, you're very proud and you feel good about it when you're done. So
Now, I've thought a lot about maybe working horses into my small farm operation. 'Cause, you know, I've got 30 acres. I don't know a lot about mechanics, but I know a lot about, or I know enough about animals.
sure, absolutely.
But I see a lot more people using animal power on
Yeah,
farms.
Absolutely. There's such a reward to it too. You know, we can go to the gas stations, we can get fuel for these noisy generated type of machines, but there's something to be said for using the animal. They're not so much as a tool as they're part of the family. So it's a reward to work with a living and breathing animal like that. So you're starting to see a lot more of the horse kind of coming back into things, but you're also starting to see people where they're a little more intrigued with crossing it up like yourself. So very good, yeah.
Well, if I do decide to get a set of horses, I'm going to need you to help me pick them out.
Absolutely, and it'd be a pleasure.
Well, I suppose you're getting hungry.
Absolutely.
Well, why don't you all come down with me to Eau Claire and start getting lunch ready for the loggers? Hi, Diane. How are you doing today?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. So, Diane, I kind of always thought that Wisconsin was just the land of dairy, and I thought it was like that for a million years, but it's not, is it?
No, before it became a dairy state, it was really a lumbering and logging state. So most of the state had a lot of sawmills, a lot of lumbering, especially the central and northern parts, and Eau Claire was a really big part of that, Eau Claire and the Chippewa Valley.
Why is that?
They had the river, and they had a lot of white pine. White pine was really desirable because it was easy to work with, and it could float where red pine would sink.
What were the major logging years here?
Wisconsin started in about 1840 and went to about 1910, but really 1880 to 1890 was the heyday. That's when we produced the most lumber.
Now we're at the cabin area of the loggers. What normally took place here?
Well, they would come up in the winter. The trees were so huge that the sun just couldn't penetrate through to the ground. So the land was really muddy and mucky most of the year. So once it froze, they would come up here. A lot of them were farmers or sawmill workers. And they would come up and live for 3 months, work sun up to sundown for $1 a day.
Oh my goodness.
So a lot of sweaty men lived in a bunkhouse where there was no bathing, a lot of fleas, a lot of lice, a lot of sweaty men, and wet wool socks, not the most pleasant place.
That's for sure. So was it hard for them to, because these people didn't know each other before coming to the camp, was it hard for them to kind of get along or communicate?
It was, and they had a lot of strict rules to keep them compatible. No gambling, no card playing. There were a lot of immigrants here, so they couldn't always understand each other language-wise, but music was a really big part of that, especially Saturday nights. That was something everyone could enjoy. That's also kind of when the storytelling started too, so.
Isn't that interesting how music can kind of bond all of us together through just excitement and joy?
Yes, they loved it. They would even dance. You know, they would have their fiddles, harmonicas, accordions, and they even danced, and the men who were the non-leaders would put a little bandana in their pocket. So.
Oh, cute. I can't believe they'd have the energy after logging all day long.
Yeah, I think Saturday, because they knew Sunday they could sleep in and that was their day off, I gave them a little boost, I think.
Now, I'm cooking for these lumberjacks, and I want to know a little bit of the history of who cooked for these folks way back when.
Yeah, we had a cook and a cookie from about 1850 until 1910, men only. And the men were, the average lumberjack really was only 5'4", 140 pounds. But when they were up here, they ate 8,000 calories a day.
Wow.
So they really kept the cook and cookie busy. The cookie that was here would take care of washing dishes, peeling potatoes, hauling water. The cook would prepare a big breakfast for the men, a mid-morning snack, a big lunch, an afternoon snack, and then dinner.
I wish I had one of those at the farm.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. So it was, I know there's certain lingo, right, that they would use when they were talking about food. What are some of
There
those?
are some fun. Doorknobs were the biscuits. Swamp water was their tea. Those were two of the most used. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, I'm going to go cook up a feast for these guys. I don't know if I have any swamp water, but I'll try to come up with some. And
Sounds good.
Some of the other things. But thanks for your time. This is great here.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Back in the old days, typical logger fare would have been salt pork, navy beans, a little bit of flour, and maybe some molasses. But I wanted to spice things up today for my loggers with a family recipe, which is Irish soda bread. Irish soda bread's on the table at all of our family gatherings and even just on a weekday night. Cookie, can I have 4 cups of flour? Thank you, sir. So add the flour right to a nice bowl that you can stir in everything to. And to the flour, I'm going to add some baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and then I'm going to cut in some butter. You want your butter to be a little bit chilled. Cut that right into the flour here. Once the butter's cut in, I like to add Wisconsin cranberries. And I just get dried cranberries, sprinkle those all around. Give this a good stir. And then add 1.5 cups of buttermilk. And slowly get this in here. This is great too. You could add some orange zest or lemon zest to this bread to add a little bit of a citrus flavor. You could do dried cherries if you happen to live over by Door County. Use your imagination and it always turns out wonderful. Gently mix in all of these ingredients. I don't want to over mix this. I don't want to knead it so much like I would different bread recipes. So I'm just going to get this coming all together like so. That's looking perfect. And then I like to cook mine in a cast iron skillet. So my skillet's nice and oiled up, and now I can just pop my bread right into this pan. Smush this around. Cookie, why don't you get this in the oven? Do you mind? And then I'm going to clean up and get ready for the logger pie. Cooks were high-ranking members in the logging camp community. They had to feed all of these hungry men over 8,000 calories a day. But it wasn't only the cooks that were high-ranking, it was their cookies too. The cookies were the first person up in the morning. They had to wake up all these grumpy loggers, and they were the last to go to bed at night after everything was done. So Cookie, since you've been doing such hard work, why don't you go take a break, maybe go find the loggers, and I'll cook you lunch. I wanted to do a lager pie today. It's my fun version of the shepherd's pie. I feel like since I'm cooking for a group of loggers, I can call it a lager pie. But there's a different variations of the shepherd's pie. So if you're doing a shepherd's pie with lamb, then it's called shepherd's pie. If you're doing it with beef, a lot of times that's called cottage pie. My parents are vegetarians, and when they do their version of shepherd's pie, they do it with lentils, and they call it a shepherdless pie. One of the reasons that I like doing shepherd's pie is because it's basically you're using up leftovers. So traditionally, it would be something you'd make on Monday after your big Sunday roast beef and mashed potatoes. To start with, I'm gonna add a little oil to my pan here. I like to use a cast iron skillet. Like I said, if you're cooking in a logging camp, you should use a cast iron skillet. And then to the pan, I'm gonna add some carrots and some celery. When I cook a lot of the times, I like to use whatever's on hand. And I think it's important to do that when you're cooking, to be able to have a foundation for a recipe, but then to be able to add maybe what's in season or what you have on hand so that you can have a little bit more fun when you're cooking. I'm gonna turn the heat up on this a little bit. I'm gonna cook these carrots and celery down for a few minutes over medium-high heat and get them softened up. Now I'm gonna add one whole chopped onion. I wanted to add the carrots and the celery first because they need a little bit longer to cook than the onion. Nothing beats the smell of onions frying on the stove. Okay, while that onion's getting cooked down, I'm going to chop up some herbs. I have some fresh thyme from the garden. I think rosemary would also work nice in this recipe, or any other herbs you have on hand. Like with most food, you have to cook to the taste of you and your guests. So add a little bit more here, a little bit less here, whatever you wish. And I'm just adding enough thyme here to give it a nice flavor, to have this beautiful logging shanty with the wafting with the aroma of fresh herbs, and it smells delicious. Now that the onions are cooked down slightly, I'm gonna add some peas. Peas have always been a classic ingredient in shepherd's pie for me. This is a great way to get a lot of vegetables in too without anyone really knowing it. Now I'm almost ready for my next ingredient, the most important ingredient, the beef. For me, it's important to know where my beef comes from. I want to be able to support the family farms that align with the way that I think. So what's important to me is making sure that their animals are treated well, making sure that they're thinking about their soils and thinking about the land around them. I'll add about a pound a burger right to my vegetables here and get this nice and cooked down until everything's brown and the beef's cooked through. Once the beef is browned, add a little bit of tomato paste to give it that nice tomato flavor and help thicken it up a bit. Because now we're gonna start kind of creating a little bit of a gravy for the inside. And I'm gonna add a little bit of wine. When I cook with beef, I often like to cook with using wine as a flavor adding agent. And the alcohol will cook off and then it'll just be a nice wine flavor. You could also use dark beer, would be really excellent in this too. You wanna give it a little liquid so the potatoes have something to soak up on the plate. And now just a little salt and pepper. Little splash of salt here. Give this a stir. And the whole reason I make logger's pie is to use up leftover mashed potatoes. It's my favorite way to do it. And whenever I do have leftover mashed potatoes, I always have to go out and make the logger's pie. So with your leftover mashed potatoes, you're gonna make a nice crust here. And if you wanted to, you could put a cup of cheddar cheese in or grate some Parmesan cheese on the top of this. Another flavor adding, and I think cheese is great on everything personally. So now you'll just smooth out the potato topping here to make a nice crust. And you could also add a few pats of butter if you wanted to brown up a little bit. All right, well, I'm gonna pop this in the oven and then I'll go get the loggers for the logger lunch.
It's almost ready for you. Nice to see you. Oh, good. Well, I got some good news for you guys. Okay.
Fuel up the Paul Bunions around your table with hearty, beefy lager pie, topped with a tangy rutabaga mash. Irish soda bread with a touch of Midwest magic. Lots of creamy honey butter and wonderful Wisconsin cranberries. The perfect sweet ending for this Wisconsin lager lunch, Grandma's Classic Rhubarb Crisp. The brew for the crew, piping hot black tea. Remember, alcohol is never allowed at the logging camp. I hope this has inspired you to have lunch ready for your loggers, and I hope you'll gather with us next time around the farm table. I'm your host, Inga Witcher.
I'll tell me ma when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair, they steal me comb, but that's alright when I go home. She's handsome, she's pretty, she's the belle of the she's the please will you tell me who is she? Tell me ma when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pull me hair, they steal me comb, but that's alright till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of the she's a garden 1, 2, 3. Please would you tell me who is she?
Around the Farm Table is funded in part by Wisconsin Farmers Union, Heartland Credit Union, and Friends of Wisconsin Public Television.